Hello and welcome to My Heart on Pages. I'm your host, Dr. LaQuita Parks, author, publisher, and founder of Pay Pro V Publishing, where we take stories from a thought to realization. This podcast is a sacred space for storytellers, overcomers, and visionaries who have chosen to turn pain into purpose and purpose into legacy. Here, we have real conversations about faith, resilience, healing, and the power of putting your heart on paper. Because your story is not random, it is intentional, and it deserves to be told. Welcome to My Heart on Pages.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of My Heart on Pages. I am your host, Dr. LaQuita Parks, and I am so excited to have this guest here with me. Listen, she is a woman among many, and she is amazing, amazing, amazing. Miss Mary Beal, how are you?
I am well. I am so happy and honored to be here with you this evening. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. You know what, Miss Mary, I have got to say, you hear all this stuff about people aging backwards. I have got to say, I have no idea what you're doing, honey, but you are beautiful. You've always been beautiful, but I'm telling you, you look like you have aged backwards by 20 years. You have got to tell me your secret. What in the world are you doing? What's the secret? What's the formula?
Now, you know, my girl had a little well past 100. I got a few tips from her.
Okay.
You know, yesterday was her 113th birthday. So I learned a few things from Mother Shazer.
Yes, that was one of my favorite people. You know, I go to the pool in the morning, and this morning I was having a conversation with some of the people in the pool who are friends on Facebook. So they saw that, and I got a chance to share with them how I met you. And some of them are probably listening in to the show tonight. But I got a chance to tell them how I met you and how I had an opportunity to meet this fabulous woman. I think I met her when she was 107, right?
Yes, you met her when she was 107.
And boy, I started bringing cupcakes. And I remember the first time we went to visit, we took 4 cupcakes and she didn't share. So the second time we went, we took 6 cupcakes. And I remember she said, y'all have none?
Exactly.
And then she decided to give us half. We had to share one. And then the next time I went, I took Shauna and Kalina with me and took a dozen cupcakes. And she would not share those cupcakes. She wouldn't share with any of us.
I know. My nephew was there and they said he had a sweet tooth. She said, not today.
Not today. Not today. She had, I tell you, up until the time she died, and I know you knew her more than me, of course, but I remember visiting her at the end, and she was in the bed, and I went in and I was singing to her, and she opened her eyes and she smiled, and she was just so just a beautiful person and so spirited to the end. And I was really, really impressed that she still had all of her faculties. She reminded me of my aunt who passed when she was 95, and she was clear as a bell until the day she died. And I was just so honored to meet Mother Shazer.
Well, you didn't get a chance to meet my mother, who was a friend of Mother Shazer.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very clear on her transition.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said, it seems like she had a PhD in speech and psychology all rolled into one. She was so clear about who she was and where she was going. It was just awesome, you know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I just thought about her transition and Mother Shazer's transition because I was with them both, and that was beautiful.
It was beautiful. You know what? I often think that as young people, it was an honor for me to be able to meet her. And I thank you so much for that, because that's a memory that I'll never, ever erase, because I didn't get a chance to really sit at my grandmother's feet or my great grandmother's feet and get to know her. I knew her, but I didn't get a chance to really talk to her and get history. If I knew then what I know now, then that would be different. But I love the fact that Mother Shazer was open to talk, because a lot of times young people don't want to listen to what older people have to say, so they don't say much. So how did you get, tell us that story. We'll talk about your other book too, but tell us how you got a chance to connect with Mother Shazer to the point where she allowed you to tell her story.
Well, she was a family friend even before I was born. And as such, uh, her sister, her older sister, was my father's sister-in-law. So by knowing Aunt Carrie, I got to know Mother Shazer. And when Aunt Carrie died, I felt drawn to Mother Shazer because they had been together all their life. She died at 103, Aunt Carrie did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew she was going to be missing her sister. And so I started spending more personal time with Mother Shazer. And so COVID came about.
Mm-hmm.
And, people weren't visiting and doing anything. And I knew Mother Shazer strived on interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't let that stop me. So during COVID, I would go check on her. And one day, the Holy Spirit sent me there, and she was going through a dehydration period. Mm-hmm. So it seems that drew us even closer. So I became her personal chauffeur. Eventually, she chose to come and live with me when they told her she had to go into a nursing home, and she wasn't having it. She wasn't having it. So, and I could not, at that time, she was 108. And I could not see my mother's friend going into a nursing home as long as I was able to help care for her. So that's kind of how we became very much, we became very close.
Well, I remember that transition, and I remember Mother Shazer had an appetite.
Definitely.
I remember going to her house before she transitioned to your house, before she moved to your house. I remember going to her house and spending time, and she was very independent. She was very independent, and she was just so friendly. She said I was her baby. And it's like I knew her and she knew me for forever. I was very impressed with her because she was I love one of the stories I remember that she told, not just from the book, but I remember when she talked about being a child and playing with a doll in the yard, and where the people on the porch were talking, and she was playing in the yard, and I was like, wow. And she said it like it was yesterday.
Yes, her memory was so great and so sharp.
Yes.
I think I told the story. I'm not sure if I told it in the book, if I told it to you. She knew about the church she attended as a child. And so one day, it was a beautiful day. I said, let's just drive down there. It's about 40 miles away. I said, let's just drive there. And so we got into the town. I didn't know where to go. So I said, let me just stop and ask someone about this church. And they told us. And Mother Shazer had told me, she said, it's about 5 miles from the town. We drove to the place, but when we got there, Mother Shazer said, that's not my church. Well, they had rebuilt the church. They had moved the location and rebuilt the church, but it had the same name. And I was thinking, how sharp this lady is, that she could remember the distance. And so when we got there, and we saw the name on the church, the pastor's name. She said, oh, we used to Pastor Boone's house when we were going to church. So I felt sure that it was the right church. And then we had the opportunity to go back and fellowship them one Sunday. It was so awesome.
I love it. So how do you, let me ask you a question. There's so much going on. And I know you work with the elderly and you're a historian. How do you feel about when you hear that a lot of times they just dismiss older people? They mistreat them, they put them in a home and forget about them. Family does. And then now I've seen more, I call it a call for caregivers. You get paid to take care of, to be a caregiver. And a lot of times people are just doing it for money. And you didn't do that. So how does that make you feel, knowing who you are and what you've gone through for somebody who was not even your relative?
Well, after you know some people so long and you get close to them, I have a friend who call it friends, faction, friends that's like relative. You've been close so many years that they're just like relatives. That's the way Mother Shazer was. She was a friend, but she was a relative. And so it was not difficult because we were taught up to respect our elders and also to assist people. So if you're a missionary, you don't pick your charge. The Holy Spirit tends to guide us as to what we do. So if we pick and choose what we do, then, we have to look at ourselves in terms of our heart. So I could not see someone who needed assistance that I could provide to go without. So that, the Lord had blessed me to be able to do this.
So it's like second nature for you.
It's second nature. Well, I took care of my mother for 6 or 7 years, and I've been a caregiver most of my life, put it this way. I was trained from 10 years old. Brothers. I was trained.
So it was like this is all new. It's like when there are people who they just automatically jump in and start doing stuff because that's what they do. It's what they do. They don't have to be asked. They don't have to wait to be asked. It's what they do. They jump in and they do what has to be done.
They have gained the practical knowledge and the spiritual awareness throughout their lives. And so it's not an issue. It's not something even to debate. You have discernment and you follow that.
I love it. So how important is legacy for you?
Oh my goodness, dude. How much time do you have for me to tell you about legacy, girl? I tell you, I am just elated because I remember as a child, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, would have us transfer genealogical information from her Bible into our Bible. But unfortunately, our house burned down. So that Bible no longer exists. But my mother still, in the new Bible, started to record, but some of the historical information disappeared with that original Bible. So that was something that I'm learning as I do genealogy research was very important. Let's go back to the Bible. Let's go back to numbers. Let's just go back to the Bible. We don't have to do it.
That's the only foundation that matters. No other foundation matters. Exactly. Let's go back.
What happened in the book of Numbers?
There you go.
It started recording the generations. Right. So what can we say? We got our training early on. Okay.
You know what? You raise a good point because if you're trying to find the blueprint has already been created. All you have to do is go back through. It tells you everything. It gives you directions and instructions on everything for life and living in godliness. So all we got to do is go there. How do I do this? Oh, okay. You know what? You can trace it back to the Bible. You can trace everything back to the Bible.
Everything back to the Bible.
I love that. So what was the moment that you knew that, so you've written several books and your latest is From Cotton Fields to Castles. I love that name. What was when did you know? And that was your memoir, right? That's your memoir.
Right. That's my Cotton Fields to Castles, my memoirs.
Cotton Fields to Castles. When did you knew that? What made you say, you know what? Let me do. This is the time. The time to do this is now. What made you say, let's pull the trigger and you go ahead and do this?
Could you hold just 1 second and I'll come back and answer that. I just need to take care of one quick thing.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I'm back. Okay. So what made me this time, there's divine timing.
Yes. I believe
and so this I was led by the Holy Spirit because 2026 was my year to get 2025 was my year to get this off of my desk. It's been hanging around for too long. So I started working on it and I got an interruption because I had an overseas trip. And I said, I need to get this off. But thank God to someone you helped train, worked with me and had that bulldog tenacity. You're going to get this done. And so with that, I was able to get it done. She understood what was going on, but she says, we're going to do this. And that helped me having someone pushing me a little bit more to get it done. And so that's really why it got done last year as opposed to this year, because I had someone who had my interest at heart and really wanted to see this come to fruition.
I purchased a book, and it's a beautiful book. She did a good job. Jacqueline Cox, you can say her name.
Yes.
Jacqueline Cox with Listen Linda Publishing. She did an amazing job. She really did. I love the way that you go back and you talk about where you came from, and you already have an extensive history. So I like the way that when you started, when you give the intro. I love when I start reading a book and the author gives a note. So I always believe that you dictate the tone of the story. So I like the way that you give us an insight to your thoughts. So there's an author's note at the beginning, but what I want to know is when you think about the title, Cotton Fields, what does the cotton fields represent? And not just what it represents,
Okay.
because we all know what cotton fields are, but what does it mean emotionally?
Okay. Can we take one quick break, if you don't mind? Just one quick break.
Okay, Miss Mary.
May we?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and Miss Mary will return shortly. But in the meantime, let's go to a video.
Hey there. It's a tough world out there. We all face so many challenges, and sometimes it feels like everything is crumbling around us. But here's something I've learned. When the world feels like it's on a Richter scale of problems, it might just be the perfect moment to find God. You see, when we hit rock bottom, that's where God might be waiting for us. I know it's not easy, and it's definitely not comfortable. But sometimes, those moments of despair are exactly where we need to be, to truly meet God and ourselves. It's like the story of the prodigal son, a tale as old as time but as relevant today as ever. He wandered far, lost himself. But at his lowest point, he found his way back to his father, back to love, and back to himself. When someone we love is in trouble, it's natural to want to save them. But sometimes, by intercepting their fall, we delay their meeting with God. It's hard to watch, but remember, God's got them. Pray that your meeting with God doesn't have to happen at rock bottom. If you can help it, meet him somewhere else. But if you do find yourself there, know that it's just a chapter in your story, not the whole book. So, where is your meeting with God scheduled? I've had my share of rock bottom meetings. And let me tell you, those meetings, though tough, are life-changing. Wherever you find him, just be open to the experience. It's not about where you meet him, but that you meet him at all. Hang in there and keep the faith. Pick up a copy of my book, Rock Bottom, a modern-day parable from the biblical story of the prodigal son, by Robert Brooks, available on Amazon.
All right. That was just a video with the author of Rock Bottom by Robert Brooks. Miss Mary, everything okay? You all right?
Yes, everything okay. There was someone at the door that was, aggressive trying to get in, so I had to deal with that. Okay, I apologize.
No problem. It happens. This is life. This is real life. This is not technicolor. This is life, and life is life. Life happens.
Yes.
So back to the question. The book Cotton Fields. What does Cotton Fields represent emotionally for you?
Emotionally, that was probably my first job. I was born on a farm, and at an early age, even before you started school, you could pull some cotton out of a bulb and put it in a bag. So, and I grew up a house set, what I say, in the middle of a cotton field, but it wasn't really in the middle of a cotton field, but there was cotton on one side and cotton on the other. So it felt like it was in the middle of a cotton field. So, but that's basically what cotton field. I did a lot of cotton picking when I was young because that was one of the crops my father, my uncle, my grandfather grew. And that was help sustain our livelihood. So I picked a lot of cotton.
I had an experience, my first experience with picking cotton, because, as I grew up, all I knew about was slaves pick cotton. That was all I knew about. I didn't know about the farm, and I didn't know about the country, and I didn't know about that. So that was my only experience. Well, when I became an adult, I was working in a school in an elementary school, and they were going on a field trip. And I used to manage the write and the read lab. And they said, Miss Tanner, I was Tanner at the time, come and go with us, as a chaperone to take these kids on the field trip. And I was like, okay, the kids are not going to be here. I'll go. Had no idea. I knew we were going to a milk farm or whatever. And so one of the things was, okay, we're going to pick cotton. And so the kids were all happy. And I was looking, I was like, what? What do you mean we're going to pick cotton? And I was like, oh, no. I know y'all didn't bring me out here on a field trip with these little kids to pick some cotton. So that was my first experience. And then my second, only two experiences in my life. I went to Alabama for my birthday a couple of years ago, and Carolyn Coleman lives there. And we went to the botanical gardens. And as we were walking around, there was a history part. And as I walked past and I stopped and I said, wait, I was like, these are flowers. And as I got closer and touched them, I said, this is not flowers, this is cotton. So I saw cotton growing. I said, wait a minute, they got cotton here. So, it's more than, and I love the fact that you're a historian, because if you don't know, your ignorance will find you out. So I am a proponent of going to the Google to look up stuff that I don't know. And there is no reason why anybody should be ignorant, because there are so many tools to learn. But those two experiences with cotton. And so after my research, I'm like, how long? One of the things in my head was, how long did it take to fill a bag of cotton? Well, because it's so light, and how long? It was like, oh my goodness, that was a lot.
It depends on the size of the bag. I put it that way. Because they made small bag for the children. So we grew as we grew older, our bag grew bigger, so that you had to put more cotton inside the bag. Okay.
I love it. And so we have the cotton fields and what that represents emotionally. And so what about castles? What do the castles represent for you?
The castle means, back up a little bit. Cotton fields, that's like the low in terms of work. That's hard work. Mm-hmm. That's back bending work. That's grounded. Mm-hmm. But then I was blessed to live in Europe for a while. And then the big thing in Europe was visiting castles. Mm-hmm. From city to city, they have these castles, and you see these huge buildings or estates. And so it became very interesting to go and visit them and see history inside those castles. Mm. And not only the history, you saw the way of life in certain cases, because sometimes they had a video explaining the previous owners of those estates. Mm-hmm. And it just was educational. Because cotton fields are educational. You can get a lot of education in the cotton field. Trust me, believe me.
Oh, wow.
You get a lot of inspiration in the cotton field. you can get that in castles by seeing history, by experiencing just the interaction with people who have that shared experience or knowledge about those. So yeah, it's quite educational.
I love that. So in your book, you describe preservation of legacy. So what legacy were you afraid that you might lose, or that might be lost by, this generation or the next generation, if you didn't document your experience?
Oh my goodness. Let me see where I want to start. One of the things is that a lot of people are having their DNA tested to see who they are connected to and where they come from.
Right.
I was blessed. I didn't have to do a DNA test to know that on my maternal side. Mm-hmm. My mother and her sisters and my grandmother and my great grandmother, they passed this down. Mm-hmm. So what I have for my connection, my relatives, is that I have an unbroken chain on the maternal lineage all the way back to close to the 1700s, right at the beginning of the 1800s. Not only do I have that, I have photos. Mm. So in terms of my own lineage, and this reaches way out. It's not just mine, because there are people that don't even know they're related. Mm-hmm. Because we go back our family reunion, we started to abbreviating with an acronym because we included all of the families. So
Mhm.
the F is for the Fields family. So if anyone listen and you're a descendant of a Fields, you may just be my cousin.
Hey, hey.
Okay. If anyone's listening and you're from the Massey lineage, you just may be my cousin. And there, believe me, Campbell soup, there's a lot of Campbells in the world. So if you have an ancestor who is a Campbell, you just may be my cousin. And the L is for lamb. So if you're a lamb descendant, you just may be my cousin. So we have a reunion every 2 years.
Mhm.
And so what I did is I did a huge organizational chart that shows the family tree. It was so huge, I cannot even take a picture of it and show you. That's how huge it is.
Mm.
And so people were fascinated. Where do I fit in? And I said, you may can find yourself, but it's so large, I couldn't get everybody on here.
Mm. Mm.
But you can make it see your grandmother or your great grandmother.
Mhm.
So, and then everybody was saying, well, I'm not there. And in-law says, well, I'm not on there. So
right. Everybody want to be a part
everybody want to be a part of the tree. So
you know,
everybody is a part of the tree. We just don't know it.
They don't know it. Have you thought about, I know you said it's too big to take a picture. Have you thought about scanning it, like doing a video and videoing it?
You know, I have, and I've attempted. I tried to put it on panoramic so that you can get a good feel of it. Mm-hmm. But I'm not the best photographer, so I need to get someone professional to do this.
Yeah, have somebody to try and do a like they can take a video and that way get it in there, and then as they share that video, then people can stop the video and and say, okay, open it up and see.
What I resorted to is to breaking them down into generations, so that I don't have them all on one, that I can stack them so that they can get another feel that way. So that's what my next step is.
And you know what, Miss Mary, that is really, really, truly a blessing, because there are so many people who didn't have that, and they don't have it. They don't know where to start. I remember as I started going through my family history on my mom's side, and there was a lady on the timeline who was born after my grandmother. And I was like, whoa, my grandmother, as far as we knew, was the youngest. And so I'm like, who is this lady? Who is this lady? So there was another sibling. And so they're all gone now. My grandmother, all of my aunts, all of them, uncles, everybody, all of them are gone. And so, you can't ask to see, is this the correct. And so it's disheartening, because it's like you're going through blindly, and you can get so far and then you get stuck. So we probably have to talk about that a little offline, but that is a beautiful thing, to be able to know your family and where you come from. My dad's side, they kept more records, and I'm not saying that my grandmother didn't keep records. It's just that whoever got her stuff, we don't know where they are. But my dad's side, they're doing the legacy, so you can see the family tree, and you can see my grandmother, my great grandmother, and you can see that line, and okay, these are the these are the parts and how that goes, and that's a beautiful thing to know your history and know where you come from. And it's especially important, because you don't know who you're related to.
Exactly. I don't know if this will show or not. Can you see that? Well, that top picture, that's my great great grandmother. And my mother said when she was 12 years old, great grandmother Rachel was 112.
Wow.
I got this picture. I was living near the coast, Georgia coast, and after the family had decided to change the name of the family reunion to Fields, Massey, Campbell, Lamb, I was in church one Sunday, and they announced a lady by the name of Carolyn Fields, and I asked the person sitting next to me, would you point her out to me? But she wasn't there that Sunday. But someone told her, and she went home and told her husband, because she was married to a Fields. Well, he and his cousin came out with a photo album with this picture. And I took a photo of this picture from the photo album and brought it to Cordell and opened up my computer. And my mother got so excited. That is my grandmother. So that's how we got that picture.
Oh, wow.
And you see the picture down below is her daughter and her son-in-law, Julia Fields. So what I have done, and I made this a part of my writing, is that I put a gallery of pictures in the back so people can have some idea as to what our ancestors look like. So that's one of the value of the legacy that I'm able to pass on.
And that's really important, because you have families that they got the same mom and dad, but the kids look different. And it's like, why do I look, you might have one child that's brighter than another one or darker. And it's like, why did I look like? And then as you go down the family lineage, you see that, oh, wow, this is Uncle so-and-so, and I look just like him. And so.
And that goes on. I have a cousin in New York. She said that they told her she had my grandmother's leg. Well, her grandmother and my grandmother were sisters. It says, you got your Aunt Rena's legs. It's just interesting.
I went to and I've told this story before, how I met my cousin Dion, we do the podcast, what's happening outside of love. We were at a party, at a mutual party for a friend of ours his wife gave him a surprise birthday party. And I was on one side of the room and she was on another side of the room. And I kept looking at her and I said, I think I know this lady. It feels like, I believe I know her. I've seen her somewhere. I believe I know her. So I kept looking at her and kept saying, okay, I'm going to make my way over there. So as I was making my way across the room, she was making her way. And as soon as we got close, she said, we have to be related. You have my grandmother's mouth. And her grandmother and my grandmother are sisters. Sisters.
Yes.
And they, our dads are first cousins. And we were like, wow, we didn't know each other's children, but she said my mouth. She was like, you have Idela's mouth. And I knew her grandmother, but I didn't know her.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was like, wow, small world. And it's important too, because another quick story, we were at one point going to a family reunion, and we stopped by the Kmart, and we were in the Kmart, and my sister and I, and this guy was, just kind of, hey, pretty lady, how you doing? And she was not kind of feeling him and ignoring him. So we got on the bus and got to the beach, and the same guy who was, flirting in the store was at the beach, and we like, what? Why is he here? He was a cousin. He was a cousin. So it's important. So you got to learn your history.
I have one of those stories too, but this one is interesting. This was during my stay in Europe. I had gone to the North Sea Jazz Festival in the Netherlands. There are thousands of people in this facility. My cousin, who was in the military, was stationed in Belgium, showed up at the Jazz Festival.
Mm-hmm.
He picks me out of all these people in the audience. We knew each other, but the fact that he could find me amongst all the people that was in that stadium was amazing. It's just something that connection that draws you to them.
I love that. So what was there ever a moment when you wrestled with God about your assignment? Because you clearly know. Was there ever time, because we do that, was there ever time you was like, no, not that, God, I don't want to do that?
Not really. There was times when I say, God, I need a lot of time to do this research. I mean, I have gone into state archives in the state of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, doing research. So it is that having that time to really do an effective job. So if any time that I had a problem was having that time to really spend quality time during the research and documenting. So that's been my issue. But I didn't, wrestle with him. It's just I say, Lord, you give me the time. And so I'm promising myself I'm going to retire in September to do what the Lord have me do and what I want to do. So I'm promising that. But if he says no, I have to be obedient.
So let me ask you another question, Miss Mary. When you're writing, especially and your story is your memoir, and it's not necessarily a trauma story, because there are some stories that are just filled with trauma. When you were writing, sometimes there are, especially when you're writing a history story, some things come up from the past, some feelings. I know that you experienced loss, your brother, as you were when you were younger, and then lost throughout the years. What type of emotions came up from it? Was there any point that it was emotional, where something was triggering, or there was something that, it made you sad? It didn't stop the process, obviously, but it kind of brought up some memories that were sad. Was there any of that experience while you were writing From Cotton Fields to Castles?
Yes, but they weren't overwhelming because I had overcome them earlier in life. It did happen, but it was happened before the writing of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you the story. When I really got over my brother's death, because he was accidentally killed, and it was like it was just taken away instantly.
Mm-hmm.
I dealt with that grief much later in life, but it was the Holy Spirit just let it happen at a conference of professional people.
Mm-hmm.
And the facilitator asked, it was self-development, and he asked what it would take to make you feel whole if you don't feel 100% whole. And then when he asked me, he said, about what percent do you feel? I said 90%. He said, what does it take that 10% to get you at 100% to feel whole? And the floodgate opened up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the room about 40 professional people, and I just started boohooing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I had not dealt with my grief.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but after that, I can talk about it now. I can write about it and not be overwhelmed with grief because of that loss.
Oh, I love that. And that's important. I tell people all the time, as you're going through your story, and when you start going through and you start writing your story, there are going to be feelings that's going to come, especially if it's something you haven't addressed, or you thought that that was behind you. And of course, it'll stay behind you as long as it doesn't come up.
Well, one of the things I just want to point out, but not to cut you off,
Mm-hmm.
but From Cotton Fields to Castle, there is one thing that I revealed that I had not discussed because I didn't know how to discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When my sister died, my oldest sister died, she had suffered with a brain tumor for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to see her in the hospital, that was a hard time for me. And I have to admit that I just prayed that God take her out of her misery.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can't say that to family members. They, they can't
they don't understand that, especially when they're going through.
When they're going through. So I could not share those feelings at that time. Mm-hmm. And so some people would say, well, she's heartless to pray that. But that's all the way I knew when I saw all of the wires and things going to her head, to her body. It was like, God, please take her.
Mm-hmm.
Take her out.
She's suffering too much. Yeah. Yeah. As you were completing that, I remember when we talked about when you and I worked together, we talked about it was Mary Shazer's Mother Shazer's book. And we talked about a lot of things that was in here, but we also talked about your love for centenarians and your love for, because there were other stories that you talked about. And it was amazing to me. You're amazing to me that you look like a spring chicken, but you are not a spring chicken. And so the energy to be able to go through and to do all of the things that you do for other people, it's just amazing. So tell us a little bit about I'm gonna ask you one more question about From Cotton Fields to Castles, and then we're going to talk about family.
Yes,
we're going to talk about how important family is. What and you might have just said it, which chapter was the hardest to write, and why was it?
Which chapter was the hardest to write?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a hard question, and I'm saying that I really when I look back over it, the hardest probably to write was chapters 1 through 3. because I didn't want to be redundant because I had written about some of this in previous works. And so I'm trying to give the reader something new and not repeat what I did in some of the anthologies that I wrote, because I look back and I say, I write about myself all the time.
All the
I don't
time, yeah.
want, you know, so,
Yeah,
but if
I
it's
know.
my memoirs, I'm writing about myself.
Right, because the story doesn't change.
Right, the story doesn't change. But that was probably the hardest, because I did an anthology called Achieving Results, and I wrote about myself.
I remember that.
Okay. I did an anthology with you, with
Our women, our journey from girls to women.
From girls to women. I wrote about myself and being a middle child, but I didn't want to be redundant in any of that. So I guess that part was the hardest, trying to what I'm going to disclose in these memoirs that has not already been disclosed.
Trying to write about something is, and I you know, I get that all the time, because I'm constantly writing, and it's like, okay, my story is my story. Yes. But how do you write? And you can never finish writing your story, because your story continues to be written. But it's what part of me can I write about that doesn't sound like something that I already wrote about? However, it's still my story. It's still me. So you know, reinventing that part, trying to find something, and you know, writing an article every month, trying to find something different to write about, and it's your true story. It can be a challenge, but I'm up for the challenge all the time.
Oh yeah, but then someone said to me, "Well, you can't tell them everything in one book anyway. So you know, just pick what you're going to share."
That's right. That's me. You cannot. You can, and it's okay.
Oh, and after the book is over, I said, "Oh, I forgot to mention that."
Exactly.
So that's a chance to get a new book.
Yeah. You know, and there's always a different perspective, because when you're going through it, it's one perspective. After you've gone through it, it's another perspective, because you can now see, because you're on the other side of it. But as you're going through, sometimes all you can see, you know, you can see the light, but if you're so full and it's so heavy, even that time you can't see the light. As you start to navigate through it, and day by day, you can start to breathe, and you say, okay, that looked like a little speck of light I see. And as you travel through it, then it becomes better, and you're like, okay, I made it through it. It's like, whoa, I didn't think I would make it through this. Let me tell you what I did, how I got through it. So let's navigate to something that's near and dear to you, to your heart. Tell us about FLIP. What is FLIP?
FLIP is an abbreviation or an acronym for Family Living Improvement Performance Plans.
And that's loaded. That's loaded. That's loaded. So tell us about it.
Let's tell you about this. As you read in From Cotton Fields to Castles, I talk about, in growing up, how I was raised in a family and an extended family, and also how my parents raised us, and then some of the expectations that they had. Not only that, I didn't go into a lot of detail about the mentoring that I received in early childhood. So I look back on that as an adult, and I said, you know, I'm so grateful to have had the parents that raised me, not just parents, but the aunts and uncles who poured into me, and not just them, close family friends who were older and chaperoned me and poured into me. And so I'm saying, so what is missing in today's society? That question was asked to me on a podcast some years ago. And I said, it is that adult supervision, being around adults, being exposed to a variety of people, and still getting that inspiration and encouragement everywhere you went. And so that's one of the things that I started seeing, is that we're not often trained on how to be a mother or father, how to be a caregiver. A lot of us are not trained in that. But I was fortunate to get that training. And so from a practical standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint, so I want a system that can be duplicated throughout the land where people can go and get that training, get that advice, get that mentoring and coaching that they need to be the best they can be in terms of family. So that's
Oh,
what Flip is about.
I like that. So so tell us, how do people get involved?
People can get involved, first of all, by going to the website. We have a beautiful website, flipga.org. And there's a place for everyone. There's a place for volunteers. We have a beta group. There's some questions and answers. You can go and find out some answers to questions. But more importantly, the foundation, Flip's foundation, is built on 6 key pillars that affects every family, regardless of economic status, regardless of race, regardless of religious status. Flip can help basically every family, and that is spirituality. And I say spirituality first because there is a higher power than us.
Yeah.
And that higher power is what guides me. Okay.
Yes.
Then there is finance, and we need some resources in order to live and operate in this world. Education. The book says we perish for lack of knowledge, and we have so much opportunity to get knowledge. So
yes.
Economics. It says faith without work is dead. So economics, we need some work. Okay. Health and wellness. The book says we'll be in health, but he wants our soul to prosper. So all of these are interconnected. And then he says, brethren, let us live together. So that's family unity. So those are the 6 pillars. Okay. So who can't use any of those? Let me know.
That's right. And you know what? As you go through this process, what's your anticipated outcome?
My anticipated outcome, and it is my hope and expectation that if for young families, for older families who have experienced some difficulty in getting some answers that they need in order to see their families prosper, that they check out Flip. Flip is a practical way to help the family. And the beautiful part about it, it has a measurement system. So you know how you're doing. You get a report card. Okay. So that you can see.
It's measurable. Okay. So it's got some smart goals in it, huh?
Oh yeah. You got to do the work to get but anyway, that's the whole, but there's incentives with the program. It's just like going to school. When I went to school as a child, my aunts and uncles, they encouraged us to do well in school, and they would reward us. You came in with a good report card, you may have gotten a monetary increase, acknowledgement. You may have gotten a trip. You may have gotten something special because they recognize that you have put forth that effort to do your studies and to bring home a decent grade. So that's what we want to do with the families. In the process of going through this training, we want to reward them so they can continue and pass that information on. We have a serious crisis right now in this country, in this world, because we have not passed on knowledge, skills to the next generation. So my prayer is that Flip will be able to close some of the gaps.
You know what? I absolutely love that, because it is so true. I was having a conversation with a group the other day, and as we go through everything that's going on, I remember when I was younger, I used to get in the kitchen with my grandmother. We had to get in the kitchen. We had to help cook. We had to iron clothes. We had to do those skills that were good for, making you productive and giving you tools that you can take care of yourself when you leave home. When I was raising my children, I taught them how to cook. My son too. My sons and my daughters. My daughter will say, my brother know how to do everything I can do. And you taught them that so they don't have to go out and get something to eat. They can cook for themselves. You don't see a lot of that now.
My youngest brother cooks better than I do. I tell you,
my kids, they cook. They
keep better house than I do.
They cook, they clean, they wash, they do all those things. But you don't see that. You see a lot of people, a lot of young people who don't have the skills, the natural survivor skills. So a lot of them is like, okay, well, if something happens to mama, daddy, or whoever you've been living with, it's going to be hard pressed. What are you going to do? So we're used to giving them the games and the cell phones, and they're tied into that. They don't have any social skills. And when they turn 18, you put them out in the street and say, go forth and be great. But you haven't given them the tools and prepared them.
Or they start producing children and don't have the practical skills to
Parents.
equip them with. So so that's what we want. One of the things, and I'm not bragging, but I spent a lot of time with my mother as a child and up throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much from her.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of survival skills.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think that I know, I don't just think that I have been successful in life in general is because of the hands-on training that I received from my mother, from my grandmother, from my uncles, that it has really given me a solid foundation where I have been able to live in Africa. I've been able to live in Europe. I've been able to live in the Middle East. I can live here at home throughout the States. So I'm saying that once you get that good foundation, you don't have a problem with living and interacting in this world with people. And we have so much breakdown in relationships these days that we need to work on that.
And you know what, Miss Mary, I'm glad that you said that, because there are so many people, and there are people listening to this show. This is My Heart on Pages. There are people listening, and they may not have had that foundation. I didn't have that foundation. My mom was there, but my mom was an alcoholic. If it were not for my grandmother, we would have been homeless, because we were evicted from every place that we ever lived. So we never got that. I didn't get that solid foundation. However, I had a praying grandmother. I had a grandmother that was there. So there are some people who don't have that. However, there are people who are equipped to give that. It's just doing your part, doing your part. And I like the fact that you've created this platform to give skills to help, because there are a lot of parents who want to be good parents. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of them, and they don't know how. And then there are those who want it, but then they feel judged. So there could be, and I know you, so this is not you, but there could be, and I've heard these stories before. Who she thinks she is. She thinks she better than me because she had that, and she don't understand. You don't understand what I'm going through. I hear that a lot. People will look at you, and people will look at me and say, "Oh, well, you're doing a podcast, or you're doing that. You couldn't possibly understand what I'm going through." Well, yes, I do, because you don't know where I've come from.
Exactly.
So you don't have to. I didn't have the foundation that you had, but I created something out of my life. I made something out of my life, and my children are and so I gave them what I knew, and I gave them what I wanted. We all want better for our children. So you give them better, and you find out. Everybody has the ability to find out what to do to get to that point. So how do people sign up for Flip?
Again, go to the website, Flip, FLIPGA.org. And if you don't go through all of the narrative talking about the mission, go to the end of the website, and it'll have a place for you to sign up. You can read the frequent asked questions to get some answers. And if you don't get all the answers there is a email address where you can submit questions to. And
what's that website again, Miss Mary?
Flip, FLIPGA.org. Put that in the address browser, and it should come up immediately.
FLIPGA.org. I did that wrong.
Yeah, you did it wrong. ORG. You had dyslexia on the end there.
Yeah. My dyslexia kicked in. And that's the truth. Sometimes I'm like, did I spell my name right? That dyslexia is nothing to play with. So Miss Mary, it has always been a pleasure getting a chance to talk to you. I appreciate our conversations frequently. And how can people connect with you? They can go to Flip Georgia, flipga.org to sign up for the family program. How can they connect with you? Is it through the same website, or do they need to do they need to message you somewhere else, a website, and how can they purchase any of your books?
They can purchase any of my books at Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they reach out to me, I don't have a large supply of books on hand. I
Mm-hmm.
do have a few of the memoirs because I'm promoting that.
Mm-hmm.
But the older books are on Amazon. If you go in and ask for Mary Beal or Mary L. Beal or the book title,
Mm-hmm.
then they should come up. But I do have, I think all of them are on Amazon except one book that I published that was a private book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But they can reach you on all things social media though, right?
Right.
Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah. I am on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and a few other ones, but I don't spend a lot of time because I am very busy. I do answer some things, and but if you really need to reach me, um, and you can't get me in any one of those social medias, inbox me, do me a DM, and that's a direct message, and I will get back to you. Okay.
Do a DM, y'all. Thank you. Miss Mary, thank you so very, very much. I love you like a fat kid love cake, honey. I do. It has been a plump, pleasing pleasure. Listen, I am Dr. LaQuita Parks, the CEO and founder of Pay Pro V Publishing. And Pay Pro V is pain, progress, victory, because I believe without pain, there is no progress. And without progress, there can be no victory. I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And my heart on pages is simply a conversation about the why behind the story. Every author who has a story, every story matters. Your story is important, and somebody is waiting on the other end of your story so they can get healing from theirs. Miss Mary, you look like you're dying to say something.
You know I am. I got one last thing to say about from cotton fields to castle. One of the things that the Holy Spirit allowed me to do with this one, at the end of most of my books, as I said, I have a gallery of pictures, but I have more so in the book from cotton fields to castle. So I just wanted to share a few of the places that I have been. And so I share them with the readers. Some of the things, that's Moses' Rod, and that was taken on my Debo, that I had a pleasure to go there. I just want them to flip through the gallery. The gallery is family, friends, travels. It's so much in these pictures. Mother Shazer is in here with me. We're there together. So it was a joy just to do the gallery for this one. And it was so hard to do this because, you know, which pictures do you include? So I just threw my hand up and said, Lord, just whatever you say, that's what will go. So anyway, if you don't see your picture in here, it's not because you were omitted. It's
don't
just
get mad.
It just
it wasn't personal. It was not personal.
Yes.
It was not personal. Well, thank you so much. And it is a beautiful book. So reach out to Miss Mary, go on Amazon, get Cotton Fields, From Cotton Fields to Castles. It is a beautiful job. And I want to say, well done, Jacqueline Cox. It is a beautiful job. I appreciate the work that you did and the work that you do. Mary Beal, it's beautiful. I have the book. I purchased the ebook. I didn't purchase the hardcover book yet. But I appreciate it. It is beautiful. I have had a chance to read through it. I haven't completed the reading, but I have had a chance to read through it, and it's well done, well written, well published. So with that being said, listen, there is always somebody waiting at the end of your story so they can get healing from their story. If you have a story, if you're an author and you have a story and you want to share your story, reach out to me. I'm Dr. LaQuita Parks, Pay Pro V Publishing, PAPROVI publishing.com. And we can have you as a guest on My Heart on Pages. In the meantime and in between time, it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure. Better than a triple-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Until next time, be blessed. Have an amazing day, and do something good for yourself and somebody else. All right?
And Dr. LaQuita Parks, you are loved and appreciated, and I don't care what you say about it.
I know that's right. I love you, and there's not one thing you can do about it.
Yes.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
Thank you.